This video will show you how to replace the fuel pump module assembly on a GMC Sierra 2500. This will be located inside of your fuel tank. Let's get into it. Okay friend, let's get started on our job. Now to do this, we are going to have to relieve fuel pressure from in our fuel system. So for that, make your way along the driver's side of the engine compartment. Looking along here, we can see our brake master cylinder and our fuse box. Let's lift up on the fuse box cover. Now as we lift that up, we're looking along the bottom of the fuse box cover. This is where we can see our fuse legend. We're looking for the one that says fuel pump. It's number 20. I've marked it in yellow here. Now as we make our way looking along where all of our fuses and relays are, we are looking for this 25 amp fuse right here. I'm just using some long nose pliers to grip it, and I'll pull it out of place. Of course, a quick inspection of that fuse to confirm it is in good usable order. For now, we're just going to set this down. The next thing you need to do is start the vehicle. What you may find is the vehicle either starts and stalls out, or the vehicle just cranks and does not run at all. Either way, that should remove the fuel pressure from in the system. After you've done that, turn off key power. You're making your way back out here. Now we did crank the vehicle, it did not start, that's what we're looking for. We'll reinstall the fuse into the exact location as where you had removed it, double check to make sure it's secured, protect this area. Double check to make sure your cover is properly in place. The next thing you're going to do is disconnect your negative battery terminal. Locate your battery on the passenger side of the engine compartment. We're going to be disconnecting our negative battery terminal. You can see it down in this area. We're going to have to use a 10 millimeter to loosen the mounting nut just enough that we can remove the terminal end from the battery. We'll set that aside so it's making no contact. We're going to be opening the fuel system. Make sure you're in a well-ventilated area. After disconnecting the battery, I always like to remove my fuel cap, so I'm going to open the lid. We'll turn this counterclockwise. Just go ahead and dislodge that. We'll set that aside. The next thing that we're going to do is safely raise and support so we can make our way under this area. Now we're moving straight down from that area underneath the vehicle. This is where we can see the forward aspect of our leaf spring. Make your way up in this area. Now here's where we can see our fuel filler neck. We need to disconnect each one of our two fuel hoses from this. You can see that we have a clamp up here holding the small hose in place. We're using a 1/4 inch socket for this. A quick note about doing this job, we do not want to use any electronic tools which may cause a spark. We are dealing with fuel vapors. Now you are going to have to separate this. You could grab hold of the hose, give it a slight twist and pull it down and away. If it doesn't break free, use a small angled pick if necessary. Go ahead and pull that hose down. We'll give it a quick squeeze. Make sure it's soft and pliable, not torn, worn, or damaged. If it is, typically there's going to be enough slack that you could trim a little off if you needed to. Just don't cut it too short where you won't be able to reuse this. This looks good. We're going to set it aside. Let's have a look at the filler hose next. We're using an 8 millimeter for this clamp. After we've used our pick and gotten the hose broken free from the filler neck, we're going to carefully separate these two. Now once you have that separated, you need to thoroughly inspect that hose as well to make sure it's not torn, worn, or damaged in any way. After thoroughly inspecting both of the hoses, I'm going to make sure that I cover the ends of the hoses so no miscellaneous debris makes its way in. For this, I'm just going to be covering it with a glove. You can use pretty much anything that'll fit over it. And of course, I'll just hold it in place. I'll use a wire tie. We're making our way along the back side of the fuel tank. We can see that we do have a valve here. We're going to dislodge this from the fuel tank itself. We don't have to remove any hoses or electrical connectors. Now for this, it does have a small locking tab. We're going to press that locking tab towards the fuel tank as far as possible. We'll take this, we're flexing it outward and then pulling it towards the driver's side. It's going to slide out of place. It really shouldn't go too far here. There's my locking clip right there. There we are. Just a quick inspection to make sure nothing's damaged. This looks good. The next thing we're going to do is prepare to remove our fuel tank straps. Now to remove the fuel tank straps, we're going to apply upward support on the fuel tank. It needs to be well supported so it does not fall down. You're going to find that you have two fuel tank straps. There's a rearward strap and a forward strap. The process will be the same, even though each one of the straps is a little different from each other. Now I'm going to be applying upward pressure underneath each side of my fuel tank. Once you feel as though you have the fuel tank properly supported, we'll continue on with the removal of our two fuel tank straps. After applying support underneath the fuel tank, the next thing we have to do is pay attention to each one of our two fuel straps. Now for these fuel straps, they go underneath the fuel tank. From the inboard side, there's a hinged joint. On the outboard side, close to the frame, you're going to find you have a mounting bolt going straight up and down. We're going to be using a 15mm to remove the mounting bolt. Do not remove the bolt or the strap if you do not have support underneath this area. A thorough inspection of all hardware as we continue on. If it looks like it's rusted and rotted, you're going to want to replace it. We'll clean this up and set it aside. Now at this point, we're pivoting that. We're making our way towards our pivot point on the inboard side. We should be able to carefully bring this up at an angle and slide it out of place. Now we're going to do the same for the other fuel tank strap. Now in the same area that we had removed the rear strap from, we can see where our evap canister is. We have to dislodge our hose leading over to it. You can disconnect it from either at the evap canister or over at the other side, whichever area is easiest for you. These can get stuck in place. For either side, you're going to want to use two flat blade screwdrivers. We're going to make our way up along each side of the line itself. You're going to find that there's a small locking tab. We have to make our way in between, gently pry it away from the evap canister or from the valve over on the other side, and then we should be able to pull the hose out and away. We are. Now that I have that slid apart, I'm just going to give it a quick inspection. You want to confirm that there's no parts that should be inside of the line still stuck on the evap canister. I've seen it before. If it is stuck on there, just go ahead and pull it off of there and reinstall it inside the line or replace the line as necessary. Now we can pivot this down and out of the way, and we're going to be going for the next line. This is the center one here. We're going to dislodge this as well. Now for this one, it actually has two small squeezable tabs. I'm going to squeeze them together with my fingers and then gently pull this out of place. You can also pry, just be careful not to cause any damage, just as before. You got one tab right at the bottom, the next one's just above it. Both of them are fairly difficult to see. There we go. Just pop that off of there. Now, since my locking clip did get removed from the line during the removal process, I'm just going to inspect the line and reinstall the plastic clip. Slides right in there. Now that we have both straps out of position, it's time to open up the fuel system along the front of the fuel tank. This is where our fuel lines lead into each other. Now for each of these, You're going to have to carefully reach along the back side. On this one, I can see that I have a blue locking connector. If you are reaching along the inboard side, you can't see it yet, but once I pull it off, I'll show you. There's two tabs. We'll squeeze them towards each other and push it out this way, towards where this area is. You may need to gently pry once you do have it moving. Of course, we have a collection receptacle under this area, so we can recycle any fluids as necessary. Like I said, this is a little bit difficult to get your fingers onto. There we are. Now, these tabs do not get fully removed from the line. If you do fully remove it, you may damage the line. Just pull it out as far as possible. At this point, we're going to carefully take this plastic portion of the line, we'll pull it away from the metal portion. Fluid may come out of this area. Be aware. Here we are. A little bit of fuel, that's expected. Let's go ahead and turn this so you can see those locking tabs. And just squeeze them together, press them up. Now it's going to be the same process for the next. Tabs. There we are. We've got that dislodged. Let's try to disconnect this. At this point, we can see that the metal lines do go into a plastic bracket. That plastic bracket is only holding the two lines at a good distance from each other. It is not attached to the fuel tank. Now the next thing we're going to do is carefully start lowering the fuel tank down so we can gain access up along the top. Now we're going to carefully start lowering the fuel tank down slowly. We need to make sure there's nothing else in the way as we go down. We do not want to cause any damage. Keep in mind we still have the hoses for the filler neck going over the frame along the driver's side. You may need to maneuver those as you continue on. Now we have the fuel tank down low enough so we can gain access to the top. We do still have electrical connectors that need to be disconnected. For our first connector, we can see that we have a locking tab up along the top. We're going to have to squeeze that in and we should be able to pull this out of place. After that, just a quick inspection for corrosion before moving along to the next. There's that one. Let's go ahead and remove the next one. Now for this one, we actually have a small locking area. You can't really see it because everything's covered in dirt on this particular application. But for this, just make your way in between and carefully start pulling it out and away. It should want to dislodge. Then we can squeeze on the locking tab. There's that. It doesn't always fully remove. Sometimes it will just slide back and then be held in place. If it comes out like this, that's okay. Once we have it dislodged, we'll go ahead and reinstall this. Our locking tab's just right up along the top, same as before. Squeeze this in and pull it out of place. Just a quick inspection for corrosion on that. That looks good. Now, as I mentioned, we do want to reinstall our locking clip for this. So I'm just going to take it and start sliding it in. We don't need to fully press it in because that would be the locked position. We want that during the installation process. For now, we've already thoroughly inspected the wiring harness. We're going to set this aside. At this point, we can continue on to fully removing the fuel tank from this area so we can start removing the fuel pump and fuel pump ring. Now that we have this on the ground, we can see the top of our fuel pump assembly and our locking ring. Let's go ahead and clean up this area. After cleaning this area as well as possible, we'll be using penetrant along our locking ring. We want to make sure we coat the areas that the locking ring holds to the fuel tank itself and the areas that go around the fuel pump assembly. And it couldn't hurt to add a little bit to each one of the lines as well. Now I'm using compressed air to help the penetrant make its way into the hard to reach places. We'll let the penetrant do its job and continue on to each of our 3 lines next. Now with the fuel tank down on the ground where we can easily gain access along the top and it's safe where it can't fall, we're going to continue on along the top of the fuel tank where the fuel pump and the locking ring are. We have to disconnect our lines from along this area. When you go to disconnect the red locking connector and the blue one, it's going to be just like the lines that we had disconnected before. It has the two locking tabs. Now for the red one, we can easily pivot this. I'm reaching underneath and I'm grabbing those tabs, squeezing them together just as before and pressing it out. With it pressed out, we should be able to disconnect it and of course a quick inspection for corrosion. This line looks good, so I'm going to set it aside. Let's go ahead and disconnect the blue connector next. Since this one's a little harder to pivot and I can't really gain access to the locking tabs, I'm using some locking pliers to squeeze in on my locking tabs. At this point, I'm going to gently pry up on that blue locking tab. A thorough inspection of the line, just as before, we'll continue on to the last line. Now for this one, you've seen this before as well. It has two locking tabs. These are inside this area. We're going to have to gently pry them away from the fuel pump, and then we should be able to pull this out of place. I have my flat blade screwdrivers. I'm making one go along one side and one along the other. We'll gently pry these away from the fuel pump as I mentioned and pull this off. A thorough inspection of that line as well. This is looking good. We're going to set all lines aside. Now before removing our locking ring from this area, we want to try to remove as much miscellaneous debris from here as possible. As you can see on my locking ring and fuel tank, there's a lot of rust here. As I attempt to break this free, a lot of the rust is going to make its way along the top of the fuel tank, so what I'm going to do is just start tapping this counterclockwise. I'm using a brass punch because I don't want to make any sparks in this area. As I make my way counterclockwise, I want to try to stop before this actually breaks free so I can remove as much debris as possible before eventually breaking it free and lifting it up and out of position. Alright, I am starting to see some movement here. This is exactly what we're looking for. We'll use some compressed air along the top of this area, attempting to remove as much debris as possible. As you can tell, it has broken free from the top of the fuel tank here. As we start lifting things out of position, there may still be rust that falls down. Let's just make sure nothing falls inside of the fuel system. Looking at the condition of this one, it should be replaced. While holding the fuel pump assembly down into the fuel tank, let's clean along the top of the fuel tank again. Now at this point, we can carefully start lifting this up. It is spring loaded. It's going to want to come up on its own. We're just going to rock this out of position. As we start bringing this up and out of the fuel tank, you're going to find that the fuel pump assembly still has fuel in it. We want to be careful not to spill any of this on the floor or ground, wherever you're working. There it is, friend. With the fuel pump module out of position, we're going to continue on to removing our sealing ring. We'll go ahead and give that a quick inspection. We can set it aside for disposal. And now we have to pay attention to the fuel tank itself. As far as this is concerned, we want to make sure that all of our locking ears are in good condition. A little bit of rust is okay, but you want to make sure they're not rotted to the point that they're weak or damaged in any way. After we've inspected each of these, make sure you clean the area where the brand new seal will go as well. For that, I'm just using a clean rag. We're wiping all the way around here, trying to remove as much debris as possible. After cleaning that, we're just going to take a quick peek inside the fuel tank. There's no debris in there, so I'm continuing on with my brand new sealing ring. We're taking that and sliding it right down into the groove on the fuel tank itself. All right, now it's time for installation of the fuel pump assembly. We're going to take this and bring the float down inside the fuel tank first. We're swinging this down into the proper position. We'll work this down. Now at this point, we need to make sure the fuel pump is in the proper orientation. We also need to make sure that the sealing ring is still inside the groove. Assuming everything is correct, go ahead and press that fuel pump down into the fuel tank, and we're continuing on with our locking ring. So we're bringing the fuel pump down. I can see where all of my lines are facing towards this area. This is exactly what I need. My alignment point is properly inside of its groove. I'm pressing this down as far as possible, and then I'm going to continue on with my locking ring. Now for this locking ring, you can see that it has grooves all the way around for your locking tabs attached to the fuel tank to slide into. We're going to line it up, we'll press that down and turn it clockwise, locking it in the proper position. Just like when we were removing the locking ring, we're still using our brass punch and rubber mallet to tap this in the proper position. Now before I go any further here, I want to show you something. As I was turning this clockwise, it felt like it wanted to stop for me. But if I look closely, I can tell that I'm not completely turned clockwise as far as I need to be. We don't want this coming loose while we're driving down the road. We'll continue on. We're taking our time, triple checking to make sure each one of our locking tabs is properly in place and the gasket's in place as well. If it's sticking out in any areas, it's not seated properly and you're going to have a vapor leak or even a fuel leak. Pay close attention prior to continuing on. After confirming everything's properly seated in place, it's time to continue on to our lines. As for the lines, we're just going to take the line it up with where it needs to be, and press it straight in. For this one, we're listening for an audible click from each locking tab. There we are. We'll just give this a quick tug and make sure it does not come out of place. Let's continue on to the next line. Now for this type of connector, we're going to press it in. Once you have it pressed in as far as possible, make sure you lock it in. Audible click from that, and a tug. Same process for the next line here. Double check each and every line, confirming everything's secured. We'll get this back into the vehicle. At this point, we can get our fuel tank back into the vehicle. I've got this on my jack and I'm going to start raising it up towards the frame of the vehicle. As I bring this up, there's a couple things that we want to pay attention to along the top of the tank. We're starting with our electrical connectors. Now, one of the electrical connectors does have that gray locking tab. We want to make sure that that is in the proper position here. We'll make sure the tank is high enough so we're not putting too much pressure on our wiring harness. We can raise or lower this as necessary. At this point, I'm lining up my electrical connectors with their corresponding ports along the top of the fuel pump assembly. I'm pressing it in until I hear an audible click, and then I'm attempting to slide it out of position. It should not slide out of position. After confirming the first one's properly secured, it's on to the next. We're pressing that in as well. An audible click, it does not move, and we're sure that we are locked in. Just go ahead and press that gray lock towards the connector. We know the electrical harnesses are properly secured. We'll start bringing this up. As we bring it up, there's a couple more things to pay attention to. We have our filler neck hoses. Those are going to go up and above the frame along the driver's side. Now, I do still have a cover on these, so no debris makes its way inside my fuel system. While I'm bringing this up, I'm not only paying attention to that, we also have our other lines that go over towards our evap canister. Everything needs to be in the proper placement as we bring this up. As you start bringing the fuel tank up, prior to it being fully up against the frame in the proper placement, you want to make your way over towards the driver's side frame along the outside. reach up in there, take hold of the fuel filler hoses, and bring them up and over that area. After that, we'll continue on bringing this up towards the frame. Along the back of the fuel tank, we're going to make sure we attach our valve in the right area. We have the mounting point, which should slide right along here. You want to make sure the locking tab is properly secured. Once you have it slid into place, attempt to slide it out of place without dislodging that locking tab. It should not slide. Now, a quick note about this, when you do go to move it, you may find that the hose slides off of the tube here, and that's perfectly fine. We can just go ahead and replace that. I have my audible click. It does not slide out of place. I'm going to make sure that I reattach my line next. Should be able to gently flex things as necessary. We're sliding it together. Double check to make sure it's secured. If it slides out of place easily, you can use a wire tie or even a clamp if necessary. This looks good. Now we're moving along the inboard side of the fuel tank here. Now we can see where we have our evap lines. Those lines need to lead over towards our evap canister. I'm going to start with the smaller of my two lines that I have disconnected. We can see that I do still have my blue lock inside of this. We're going to take this line and we're pressing it straight towards that evap canister. We're listening for an audible click and then giving it a tug. It does not slide out of place. Continue on to the next line. For this one, we just have two locking ears. We're going to carefully start lining this up and pressing it in as well. As I press it in over here, I'm also focusing on the other side of the line. We can see that it leads over to this area close to the fuel tank. We want to make sure that this is pressing into the proper position as that's pressing into its position as well. Just make sure we flex this, bring it down. There we are. Audible click from each one of my two locking tabs. It does not slide out of place. We'll double check the other side here. That's in place as well. Everything's looking good along here. We're moving along the front of the fuel tank next. Now along the front of the fuel tank, we have our two fuel lines here. The one with the blue lock would be for the upper line. The one with the red lock down along the bottom here. You can't mix them up. Start down here, line it up, press it in. We have our audible click. That lock is definitely in position. It does not slide out of place. This is extremely important. We're going to have fuel pressure in this area. You don't want these to come loose. Just double check. Yeah. Both of those are tight. Now, before installing any part, of course, we're going to make sure we clean and inspect our mounting areas. Now, as far as looking at the mounting areas, we can see on the inboard side, we have our frame crossover tube along the back side. We want to make sure the area that the fuel tank strap slides into is not rotted or damaged. We can see up along the forward side, we have another area here, same thing, not rotted, weak, or damaged. This is looking good on the inboard side. Now we need to inspect the frame on the outboard side. Now for the outboard side, as we look up along this area of the fuel tank, we can see that the frame is still in good usable condition here as far as the mounting point. We're going to check the forward side as well. Same process. After that, we can continue on with our installation. After cleaning and inspecting, let's go ahead and install our fuel tank straps. Now the longer strap will be the rearward strap. So for this, I'm coming in at an angle. I'm bringing the inboard side in, we're sliding it down into the proper groove. At this point, we can swing this towards the fuel tank and we're taking the outboard side. The outboard side is going to make its way up along the other side of the fuel tank and we're installing our mounting bolt. Now we're starting in our mounting bolts by hand, so we're sure we're not cross-threading it into the wrong positioning. After that, go ahead and snug it and torque it to 30 foot-pounds. All right, that one's torqued. For the installation of the front strap, we need to come in from along the inboard side. Now we can see the area that this is supposed to slide down and into. As you bring it down, double check to make sure it is properly seated. You don't want it hanging off one ear or the other. Now we're moving along the outboard side. Now while I'm holding this up, I'm continuing on with my mounting bolt. This is going to go through the hole in my strap itself and then also into the frame. After getting the bolt started in, I'm just going to go ahead and snug it up. The torque for this will be 30 foot-pounds. Let me get this on my torque wrench. Double check to make sure that's properly secured in place. Now we can remove support from under the fuel tank. After that, let's make our way along the outside of the driver's side frame towards where the filler neck is. Now out here, as I told you before, I did cover this area, so I'm just going to remove my covering. Once you've removed that, you can continue on with your two hoses. We're going to start with the larger diameter hose. We'll take this and press it in position. Take that clamp, get it into its original positioning, and snug it up. For this, we can flex the hose as necessary. I can see right where my clamp had been. We just want to double check to make sure that we can feel that filler neck inside of the hose. We want to make sure the clamp is on the filler neck itself. When you're tightening the clamp, you need to make sure it's secured. It should not move around in any way. Let's move along to our next hose. Same process here. Just go ahead and slide it on there. We'll continue on with that clamp. Now you can see I'm not pressed all the way on here. I'm going to continue on. There we are. I have the clamp in the proper position, so now I'll just snug it up. Double check each one of your hoses while you're in this area. Once you've confirmed everything's tight as it should be, we can make our way out from under the vehicle over towards where the fuel cap will be. Now along the outside here, we have to reinstall our fuel cap, so I'm just lining this up, turning it clockwise. After our audible click, we'll just double check, make sure that's secured, protect the area. Now let's make our way back under the hood so we can reconnect our negative battery terminal. Now for this negative battery terminal, we're just going to take this, we'll slide it into place. We're holding it in position with our 10mm mounting nut. Just go ahead and snug that up. Make sure it's on there as far as possible. Double check to make sure that's secured in place. Okay, friend, we finished our installation. The next thing you want to do is start the vehicle. Check for leaks. After that, make your way to a gas station, fill the tank, and double check for leaks. Aside from that, thanks for watching.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.